everybody, there was a terrible, terrible atrocity that was committed in a small town in Ukraine by Russian soldiers. Russian soldiers in the town of Pisky Radkivsky took civilians and pulled their teeth out. Pulled out their golden tooths. Pulled them out. Imagine having teeth just yanked out of your mouth, yanked out of your gums. So these German journalists working for Bild, which is a big, major German publication, they went down to this town. They went down to Pisky Radkivsky. And they spoke to the local dentist about these teeth. And the reason why they went to the dentist is because the defense ministry of the Ukrainian government posted a photo of the pulled out teeth and said, look, another Auschwitz, look at what Russian soldiers did. Look, how long is NATO going to wait? How many more teeth must be pulled out of the mouths of the Ukrainian people before NATO does the right thing? Before Germany sends their tanks to help the Ukrainian nation? How long will the people of Deutschland wait? How many teeth have to be pulled before the Germans send out their tanks and train our people? So Bild, hearing this stuff from the Ukrainian government, they sent their reporters to Pisky Radkivsky. And they spoke with the local dentist, the only dentist in town. And they showed the dentist the teeth, the picture of the teeth. And the dentist said, oh, yeah, those aren't teeth that were pulled out of people's mouths by Russian soldiers. Those are teeth that I collected, and they were stolen by Russian soldiers. And the Russian soldiers posted up this collection of teeth just to intimidate people. But this idea that there was another Auschwitz that was happening in Pisky Radkivsky, this idea that Russian soldiers were just ripping people's teeth out, that was a lie. Because the local dentist said, I am the only dentist in this area. I have pulled out tens of thousands of tooths. If anybody is going to have a collection of teeth in this town, it's me. So here's the thing, everybody. You have a lot of people in the Western world, in America, who hear something about Russian soldiers doing something, and everybody's like, oh my God. Guys, it's the fog of war. It's the fog of war. It's like when they were saying, oh, look, Bashar al-Assad launched chemical weapons and blah. And Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. It's nonsense. It's nonsense. Now, am I saying that Russia hasn't done anything bad? No. Am I saying that the Russians are perfect and there's going to be no atrocities committed by them? No. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is you got to be careful before you have a knee-jerk reaction and automatically, emphatically agree that some report that some publication told you happened. It's like this. In the 1920s, because history always matters, in the 1920s, Poland defeated Ukraine in a war and took a big chunk of Ukraine and made it part of Poland. The Ukrainian nationalists configured a giant network of Ukrainian activists in Europe and in Canada and in the United States. And all the time, these Ukrainian activists would protest in front of various embassies, European embassies, American embassies, Canadian embassy, and they would talk about horrible atrocities that the Poles had done to them. They would say, oh, look, the Poles have done this terrible thing. They have arrested Ukrainians. They have hurt Ukrainians. They've shot Ukrainians. But then if you look at the Polish side of the story, it was, well, no, these were Ukrainian terrorists, and we were stopping them before they could do something terrible. We were arresting them because we knew that they were up to no good. They were violent, so we had to defend the society from them. It wasn't Poland just going around killing random people because they were Ukrainian. But I'm pretty certain a lot of the people who are alive today who just go, oh my God, if they were living in the 1920s, they'd probably be saying the same thing. They probably would be having the same knee-jerk reactions. The reality was that it was the Ukrainian nationalists who wanted bloodshed and who were conspiring for a bloodbath. And that's what they did eventually. They butchered 100,000 Poles because they were Polish. But of course, the Ukrainians want you to forget all about that. They don't want you to believe any of that stuff. And that's the thing. This is why I'm not gung-ho about Russia. No country is exempt from criticism. We have to give what is deserved. If a country does something good, we should acknowledge that. If a country does something bad, we should also acknowledge that. So I'm not gung-ho about Russia. At the same time, I don't see why I have to be gung-ho about Ukraine. I don't see why I have to be a full-out supporter for Ukraine. I don't see why. Because now Russia has a history of committing atrocities, right? We all know this, right? There's no doubt. But so do the Ukrainians. So do Ukrainian nationalists. And it's not as if the Ukrainians have said, hey, our people committed some terrible things back in the Second World War. We're really sorry. No. They don't even admit to it. They refuse to admit to it. In fact, the Polish government has many times reached out to the Ukrainians to talk about this history, and the Ukrainians have always refused to talk about it, for the most part. They have been very, very resistant to having serious dialogue about what the Ukrainian nationalists did in the 1940s. When the Poles made a movie about what happened in Volhynia, in which there was a terrible massacre, the Ukrainian government decided to ban the movie. So if I walked into your house and robbed your stuff, and later on I said, actually, no, I never robbed you, what would that tell you about me? How would that reflect my character? Nothing good, right? There could be no favorable characteristics in such behavior. So this is why I do not trust Ukraine, because let's say Ukraine manages to repulse the Russians out. Who's to say that these Ukrainian nationalists won't then begin to commit atrocities on the ethnic Russians? Oh, you're an ethnic Russian. You supported Putin. Your neighborhood supported Putin. Your city supported Putin, or this neighborhood was sympathetic towards Russia. You guys all need to die. Oh, you guys decided to live in the Donetsk People's Republic, the DNR, or the LNR. Oh, you deserve to die. And if that ever happens, and it's not unlikely, but if that ever happens, I can almost guarantee you politicians who would not when ended up being these paramilitaries, humanitarian, and I believe 2 or 3 Catholic, murdered all of them actually, and there were people in the United States who didn't want to talk about that. Let's not talk about that, because the guy who was the lead criminal in that massacre was one of our guys. The fact that you have Ukrainian nationalists, Ukrainian Nazis who have been trained by Canada, and the Canadians aren't open about it, even though they knew that these people were Nazis, that they were skins, that tells me everything I need to know about Canada, tells me everything I need to know about America, that they would support such people. Ukrainian nationalists who deny the atrocities that their ideological ancestors committed not even a century ago. The fact that all of a sudden the entire corporate media apparatus is expressing sympathies towards a Nazi paramilitary is pretty disturbing. And if you're going to sit there and say, well, actually, no, Ted, the Azov battalion, you see, they're actually just a part of the Ukrainian military. They're like a unit within the Ukrainian military. Oh, okay, great. So how about you, Mr. Nice Neoliberal, support the idea of establishing a right-wing military unit within the United States Army? I want to see all these liberals support that. Let's take all of the, because there's a lot of hardcore righties in the U.S. Army. Let's take them and put them all in their special unit. We'll call it the, I don't know, the Stop White Genocide Brigade or something. I want to see all these liberals support. Well, I don't support that. What? You support it for Ukraine? This is why, guys, I'm not gung-ho about Ukraine. I'm not sitting here like waving the Ukrainian flag, even though I got a shirt that's yellow, but this is not the Ukrainian flag. Anyway, guys, you guys just heard some